Canadian government officials once again finding out that negotiating with Donald Trump can be somewhat of a roller coaster ride.
Let's bring in Glenn McGregor from Ottawa. Glenn, one of Trump's former advisors, has some unconventional advice for his northern neighbors.
That's right. John Bolton, who was Trump's national security advisor during his first presidency, worked very closely with him for a number of years before they had kind of a falling out and parting of the ways. I think it's safe to say that he is no longer on Team MAGA, or at least on Team Trump any longer. He's been pretty outspoken talking about Trump, but he's got some interesting things to say about Trump's thinking. And this is so important for all the other countries, Canada included, who are dealing with Donald Trump right now, trying to figure out, in our case, where he's going on tariffs. Where does he ultimately want to get to? What is he looking for in terms of concessions? We've already spent a lot of money trying to appease his concerns about illegal migrants crossing the Canada-U.S. border, as well as the flow of fentanyl and other dangerous drugs into the United States from Canada. We've taken steps to that, pointed a fentanyl czar this week. But does any of this make any difference to Donald Trump? Let's listen to what John Bolton had to say on BT this morning.
I think he wants somebody to kiss his ring so he can declare victory. He can say, boy, I threatened them and they gave in. You know, Ronald Reagan had a saying that there's no limit to how much you can accomplish in Washington as long as you're willing to let somebody else take the credit. So Canada might want to consider a deal where nothing much changes. That's what happened a couple of weeks ago when Trump first imposed the tariffs. There really was no significant change.
So kissing the ring, John Bolton says, is what is required often in dealing with Donald Trump. That's not what happened yesterday when 13 provincial and territorial premiers went to Washington to meet with counterparts as well as members of Congress. And then later in the day, they were invited to the White House to go meet with staff there. This looked very promising initially. Who were they going to be meeting with? Was it a chance to bring their message that they've been repeating as part of this Team Canada resistance against tariffs all along? Well, as it turns out, they were meeting some pretty junior officials. A deputy chief of staff, as well as somebody who's kind of responsible for HR issues in the White House, met with them. They met, I think they were in there for about an hour. Did that meeting go very well? It didn't seem like it, because one of the Trump officials after the meeting put out a tweet and said it was a pleasant meeting, but instructed the premiers that if you want to know what Donald Trump is thinking, listen to Donald Trump. And of course, everybody is listening to Donald Trump. We'll be listening to Donald Trump again today at 1 p.m. when he's supposed to announce from the Oval Office reciprocal tariffs. So this is another kind of tariffs. Trump loves tariffs. He thinks that this is a way to turn around the American economy. He's going to announce tariffs on other countries that have existing tariffs against the United States. This is aimed chiefly at other places like India, like the European Union, that do have tariffs in place. We don't really have those anymore because all our trade with the United States is governed by the USMCA, the renegotiated version of the NAFTA agreement. And so we don't, apply a lot of tariffs against the U.S. products, at least not yet. We've threatened to put retaliatory tariffs in if Trump proceeds to put those 25% tariffs on all goods made in Canada in place on March 4th, and potentially as well more targeted tariffs in response to his threat to put tariffs on Canadian-made steel and aluminum, again, of 25%. So we're going to have to see whether or not he does make good ultimately on that threat. But the reciprocal tariffs are really kind of chiefly aimed at places like India, as I said, and the European Union. It looks like we may get a pass on that. We'll know today. The two things to watch out for, though, on reciprocal tariffs: does Trump decide to put any kind of tariff sanctions on Canadian dairy products? We know the Americans have never liked our supply management system in the dairy industry. They think it's an unfair trade subsidy. Same for our the way we run our timber industry, the lumber industry. Softwood lumber has been an ongoing irritation for decades now with the United States. It's possible that both those industries could be targeted by reciprocal tariffs this afternoon. We'll know, Alan Fiza, a little after 1 o'clock, whether or not we're going to skate on this one, or whether or not it's essentially a third layer of tariffs that Canada is going to have to deal with and respond to.
All right, we'll see what Donald Trump has to say then. Glenn McGregor in Ottawa, thank you.
Thanks.